Welcome to the Sack of Stats podcast. I'm Pam Maldonado with Kelly Stewart, aka Kelly in Vegas, bringing you all of the analytics behind the NFL contest bets. We're chuckling right now because I was just like, fuck, before I hit the record button, which means it is not a good sign. Kelly, my girl. That is us last week. Big old losers. That was us. We went a horrendous 1-4 in week 6 just last week. That was our lone win, was the Falcons at home to the 49ers. Your best bet, the Saints versus the Bengals. Big loser. My best bet, Dolphins versus the Vikings. Big loser. What do you think about us going 1-4? And honestly, like mentally, how do you bounce back from something like that?
No, you just keep doing what you're doing. You maybe make a few small changes, but I don't think you over exaggerate 1 week. I would bet the Saints again. That was such an egregious play, Pam. It cost me a fantasy win because, of course, my opponent had Jamar Chase on a 50-yard bomb. It cost me and some of the guys over at Wager Talk the 3-week prize of almost $100,000. So wow. I was pretty grossed out Sunday. I wanted to throw my phone onto the interstate. I was driving back from my dad's with grandma, and we were watching it. You know, you get the little thing we're sitting in stop and go traffic. And I look at her. She's a big Saints fan. She knows I have Saints in a bunch of different ways, and I was ready to lose it. But I do think that it is important not to overreact to 1 week. Maybe we just weren't clicking. These things happen. I think we keep doing what we're doing. As we've seen historically, your best bets are great. My best bets are great. And while mine might be off to a rocky start with my second loss this year, I really am not going to change very much. I am not going to beat myself up over it, even though I think that I should. And I was pretty grossed out Monday morning, but it is what it is. And we live to bet another week.
Narrowing down is always going to be the toughest part. I said it in last week's podcast that the Falcons was like my very close second best bet. And the one difference, I would also bet the Dolphins over again against the Vikings. And it almost worked out if it wasn't for Thompson getting out injury. That is probably the one thing that I overlooked is like, okay, this is an injury prone team, but you can't predict shit like that. It happens. It's the freaking NFL. Players come in, they come out. So yeah, I make that play 10 out of 10. It didn't work out. It didn't work out for you. Loser. It didn't work out for me. Loser. Hey, we pick up, we move on. You have a short-term memory because it is a new week and this is a bounce back opportunity. I'm not saying it's a guarantee, but it's an opportunity and that's all you can do. So still though, we are 18-11-1 overall. So you even with a 1-4, that is still pretty good on the season. What do you think about this week's slate, week 7 in the NFL compared to week 6?
It's disgusting. I think I sent you 3 games that I liked. Did I send you 3?
It was exactly 3.
And I'm back and forth again this week. Last week, I was back and forth between the Saints and the Giants being my best bet. And like you said, it's kind of hard to quantify sometimes picking that best bet. So I just went with the grossest one here because I knew there was no way I was going to be able to talk you into it. So I knew that I had to just take it and just close my eyes and I'm just going to be in the fetal position come Sunday afternoon. I have a feeling, but this is gross. So if you're ready for it, you just let me know when.
1 second. A reminder of what it is that we are doing. I like to throw out the reminder every week because it is not a NFL betting contest. We're not giving you these are not 5 exact picks that we are betting, putting dollars on. Instead, it is 5 against the spread contest picks in the NFL. Kelly's best bet is automatically in. My best bet is automatically in. And then together we come up with the other 3, which creates some interesting discussion because you and I, more often than not, we don't agree. And you nailed it. You would have been really difficult to give me your best bet and talk me into that one. So what is it? What's your best bet for this week?
Yeah, I'm an idiot. It's the Denver Broncos.
No.
It's the Denver Broncos. Of course it is. It is such a buy low spot for this horrific team. I hate this team, Pam, from the ownership all the way down. Just set it on fire and start over. I don't know what else to do. But the line,
not bet them.
The line is it has come down too far. We're getting -1 in the contest. Right. I actually did check the contest lines this week. Normally I don't. Going back to what you said, the big thing is, number 1, I would never play 5 games on a Sunday. Number 2, you don't get a benefit from the stale lines that are in the contest. So keep in mind that sometimes it goes with us, goes against us. Denver is -3.5 in most of my office football pools. I'm not touching them. Denver -1, completely different story.
Yes.
The Jets, oh my God, did they look so good? now that they've got their, what's a good, like their chosen son. There you go. We'll give him that name, Zach Wilson. But last year, if you remember Zach Wilson, this defense got the best of him, and that's why I'm betting the Broncos. He threw 2 picks in this exact same scenario, and that's all the nice things I can say about Denver. I think that the Jets are being just a little overvalued here. This is their second week on the road, and we know that is a tough spot for teams, particularly in that high altitude. Not much oxygen in the air, and it's going to be chilly in Denver. Now, I do like this defense. We've seen this defense keep them in several games. So whether it's Russell Wilson or Brett Rypien, I don't really care. I would hope that it's going to be Russell if he is healthy enough to play. I don't think it really matters because how we've seen Russell in his current form has just been horrendous. So give me that Denver defense laying the 1 in Mile High. And if I make you hate me after this weekend, we'll be in the same boat because I hate myself. This is the most disgusting play that I could come up with this week.
I would never take the Jets in a pick'em situation. I'm inclined to agree with you that yes, like the line movement from 3 to down to 1 because of news of Russell Wilson potentially may or may not play. Have you not been watching the same games? Because it doesn't seem like that's a terrible thing. Russell Wilson, he ain't cooking. He is, I don't know what he's trying. He's burning up the place.
He's making Subway sandwiches.
Honestly, it's like leftover meat, slap it on a piece of bread and call it a day. That's what he's doing in this kitchen right now. It's not much, but more so it's you back the Broncos because of this defense. I backed the Broncos last week in primetime against the Chargers because of the defense. The Broncos have allowed a touchdown, only 6 touchdowns on 69 attempts of opponent drives. That's the lowest rate in the league. That alone is reason enough to pick a team in a pick'em situation. That's good enough for me. And then it's Zach Wilson. And it is never Zach Wilson for me. I mean, you're talking about the coming of age son, whatever it is you did with your hoo-ha over there.
Well, the chosen son. It's like some like old, I don't remember how they actually said it. I'm gonna have to Google it, but it's true. It's like all of a sudden he walks through the door and it's like sunshine and butterflies and everybody just loves him. And I'm going, what am I missing here?
Nothing. You're missing nothing. He had only 110 passing yards last week. 110 passing yards, and it was only 55% completion against the Packers, who ain't much nowadays. He was sacked twice. This pass rush for the Denver Broncos is absolutely going to rip him apart. Now, the only thing that scares me is that Jets themselves also do have a really good defense, aside from just playing the Packers. They've been consistently getting stronger. So I agree that this is like a 3-point type of game. Go with a better defense at home. Red zone defenses points are going to be at a premium. That is your best bet. I don't hate it. Mine, I feel good about still. And I think, was it on your list? I have to actually look. Was my best bet for the week is going to be Falcons plus 6.5 at Bengals. Was that on the list you sent me?
It wasn't, but I have since, and remember, I send Pam my list like Tuesday morning some weeks. I think this week I sent it on Wednesday morning. But there's a lot of work still left to do and searching for things. And then again, stale lines, things that overreact. I like the Falcons here, Pam.
I want to show what the text is. Look. Where's the thing?
He literally never even, the
barf emojis. I hate this week.
And Pam just doesn't even respond.
So here's the reason why. Okay, fine. That's the second time you brought it up last week and this week. Let me go ahead and give you the rationale to why I don't respond.
Well, I'm glad you don't respond because you guys, Pam is an Android user. So I prefer Android users just to not respond to me.
So here's the reason though. You do send them to me early. I don't look at the contest lines until the contest lines are released. Obviously, Wednesday. I don't look at NFL really until the contest lines are released on Wednesday. I don't want what you send me to have any type of influence on my thought process because you and I approach things very differently. You're like in group chats and you talk to sportsbooks managers and all of that. It is just me, myself, and I. And by you sending me a little list, I'm like, oh, maybe I like that one. I don't want to go in with a bias. You know what I mean?
No, that's exactly the reason why I don't watch any sports shows. I don't want to hear anybody else's opinion. I don't want to have anybody else influence me. And that's why I do all my work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, because starting on Wednesdays, I do all my Wager Talk shows. Starting on Thursdays, I do all my Barstool shows. And by Friday,
I'm influenced.
Maybe I do like that. Oh, okay. So that's why I get all my work done early in the week. And then, yes, I get some good intel throughout the week, right? Whether it's injury news or, hey, a certain sharp better played X, Y, or Z. But I really try not to let it influence at least specifically my best bet for this show, amongst others.
Exactly. And so from your list, I don't want to be like, "Ooh, I like that one," or "No, I don't like that one." I don't want to have any type of influence. So I see your text, I'm like, "Cool." It's already out my window, and then I'll go ahead and get into my betting. So for me, I do love the Falcons plus 6.5 at the Bengals in the last 3 games. And this is purely the Bengals defense. It is pretty great. It is one of the best fourth quarter, second half defenses in the league. However, in the last 3 games, they have started to show some vulnerabilities. The Cincinnati Bengals are actually, and this is just in the last 3 games, are 4th worst in the league for opponent yards per rush attempt. The Falcons do nothing but run the freaking ball. They are 3rd best in rushing yards. They have a trio of playmakers in Tyler Algier, Marcus Mariota himself, the quarterback, Caleb Huntley. Those are 2 running backs that provide like a 3. I mean, this is an army type of offense. I love it. It is working for them. Don't fix it if it ain't broke. Cincinnati gave up 230 rushing yards to the Saints offense just last week. They won that game by 4. Marcus Mariota, he has 50 plus yards in back-to-back games. He's averaging 8.5 yards per attempt, yards per carry. That's really good. The Falcons are averaging a first down or a touchdown once every 3 plays. In order for you to like understand what that means, you have to compare who are the 3 teams that are ahead of the Falcons in that category. The Bills, the Chiefs, and the Ravens. And the Falcons are right there for converting first downs or for putting up points. And they're doing this without passing the ball. That is freaking incredible. You have Joe Burrow who likes to sling it. Fuck it. Chase down there somewhere. Well, what happens when you have a bad offensive line, a quarterback who likes to sling it, who doesn't have a run game? You are turnover prone. Turnovers become a possibility. Atlanta is top 5 in takeaways. This is why they are doing so well on defense. They may be giving up yardage, and I think this is what the argument is for the Bengals. The line opened at 6, and it went up to 6.5. Now it's actually at 7. I bought 7. I am like 100% in on that, and it's because the secondary for the Falcons is definitely vulnerable, susceptible. It's 31st in the league. They're giving up yardage. They aren't giving up like a lot of points. They're forcing more field goals than they are touchdowns. They are so good when it comes to takeaways, forcing interceptions, forcing fumbles. And they're 6-0 against the spread. I have no idea that has anything to do with it. That I don't look at shit like that. But I'm like, it's working for them.
It is working for them. And normally I'd be looking to fade that that 6-0 team against the spread because the bookmakers are going, okay, everybody's now catching on. But not when the Bengals have covered 4 straight. Mm-hmm. Everybody wants to bet the Bengals. They were in the Super Bowl last year. Joe Burrow's so good. We saw him just beat that Saints defense there. What? I mean, the Saints had opportunities to pull ahead in that game, but they kicked a field goal, and kicked a field goal. You cannot win games doing that. And that is their problem. They should, if even just one of those would have been a touchdown, we would not be sitting here having this conversation. I like the Falcons with you this week. They were on my long list as teams to maybe add or maybe take away one off of my list that I didn't love as much.
For the contest, it is 6.5. The ticket that I am holding, though, is +7. I'm not sure I'm going to get to the window with a money line. In the NFL, I don't really mess with money line situations. I really just like to take the points, and I'm happy with that. But I do have Falcons +7, and for the contest, that is +6.5. So we have your best bet of Broncos -1. We have my best bet of Falcons +6.5. And then let me show you the screen you send me again. I hate everything. I mean, that's basically me.
I hated everyone because I was just in such. When I got the text from my group members that I think it was like 70-some thousand or whatever, I don't know. When they said that, and of course, we ended up going 3-2. I thought we went 4-1 because there's like you know how group chats go. It's just like all over the place. I thought we went 4-1, so I was even more devastated that it was my pick that lost. Luckily, Marco had given out the Panthers because his 2 best bets, Giants and the Saints, are already taken. And since there's 5 of us, I mean, I think that was my issue, but I'm over it now. I'm over it. We're going to split second and third, and it pays for the contest amongst a couple other contests this year. But still, like I did on Tuesday morning, I hated everyone. Like I was still pretty.
Honestly, you're over here like breaking my heart. Now I'm depressed that your other contest team went 4-1, 3-2, whatever. Y'all split some money, and you and I went 1-4. Womp womp.
I know, but you wouldn't know what it is. And this is the difference. When there's 5 people and they all get to give a best bet and nobody gets to argue, it's pretty simple.
Yeah.
And so far, nobody's been against each other on best bets. It's kind of working for that group right now. It's tough.
Makes sense.
I mean, 5 picks is hard.
I know. So let's get through it. So then, okay, we have 2 picks in. There is the next game that we're going to talk about. It was on your list of 3, and it's on my list of very few. It is Lions +7 at the Cowboys. The Lions, they are getting back running back DeAndre Swift. They're coming off the bye week. They're getting back wide receiver DJ Chark, linebacker Charles Harris, among so many other players, both in the offensive line and on defense. Wide receiver Jameson Williams may be back from IR. He hasn't played at all this season. I know that's an extra key part. But you know who leads this? Let me give you a trivia question. Do you know who leads the NFL? Leads the NFL in touchdowns scored?
The Lions. I mean,
There's the Lions.
They're putting up a ton of yards per game. It has to be the Lions.
It's the
They
Lions.
don't play any defense.
They have 18 touchdowns on 22 attempts of scoring plays for the Lions have been touchdowns. Dak Prescott. Oh, you're talking about Zach Wilson being the coming of guy, whatever. Dak Prescott, he's going to be back. Okay, that's really cool. Do you know that he had 10 metal screws input into his thumb? I saw when he was walking out of the off field and he was clapping, and the commentator was like, oh, his hand looks to be pretty good. He is clapping. What happens when you go up against a 300-pound lineman? What happens when you get some of that quarterback pressure? Now, the Lions aren't great at quarterback pressure, but still, once you sort of slap a glove on it and go into 4 quarters of play, potentially that's going to be different. But even regardless of his thumb situation that he had in week 1, do we not forget how kind of poor he looked in week 1? And against the Tampa Bucs defense that now we know is probably not even that good. He had only 48% completion, 4.6 passing average. He had 1 interception and was sacked twice. And now all of a sudden you're going to be a 7-point spread coming off from injury against a team that is getting all of its players back on offense, coming off of a bye, who the Lions, what do we love about them in 2021? They don't quit. They play until that clock hits 0. That is perfect for a backdoor cover and a 7-point spread.
I'll take it. Lions, traditionally, Pam, when we see teams going into a bye week, they're looking forward to it. They're excited to spend it. And sometimes we see that like team come out of that bye week where they have a flat spot, if you will. Lions are not that team either. 9-1 against the spread in their last 10 seasons following a bye.
Are you kidding me? Wow.
Love Dan Campbell. Love Dan Campbell as a dog. I'm with you. You took everything else right out of my mouth. I think that Dak is not going to be 100%, but because how poorly Cooper Rush played last week, they have no choice but to put Dak back in there. And I understand it, but I don't think that this warrants a 3-point line move. I made the game 3.5 when it came out at 6
with Dak.
Like, with Dak.
Wow.
I think Dak, as of what Dak we saw week 1, maybe 2.5 points better than Cooper Rush. And that's being very generous. An injured Dak, a Dak that we know can make mistakes, a Dak that doesn't really play up to the potential, right? Like, I don't know how else to say it. I think the last year, everybody was like, cool, Dak's back. This is going to be this great thing for this Dallas Cowboys. And it just wasn't. I do think that he can air it out better than Cooper. I think Kellen Moore can open up that offense a little bit more with Dak, but I don't think that this is warranted of it's 7 in the contest, right? Or is it 6.5? 7. Perfect. Touchdown with the best underdog in the league. I'll take it.
And I know that there's another argument that it's this pass rush for Dallas against Jared Goff. They actually have a really good offensive line. Like there's a reason why they're putting up all these touchdowns.
Slander has to kind of stop here. I'll be honest with you. I don't love Jared, and yes, he's going to be pressured, but that offense is good enough. I think to definitely cover this. I know you said you might not. I may sprinkle a little bit on that Lions money line.
I would have to consider it. Yes, that is an option for me. But we're talking about backdoor covers, potential upsets here. They covered against the Eagles. If you think the Eagles are better than the Cowboys, that's your easy argument right there in week 1. The Vikings, are they supposed to be better than the Lions? Well, they also covered against the Vikings. So these are backdoor cover opportunities and a 7-point spread. I love it. Now the rest, a little bit more difficult. Let's go through some options. I disagree. You sent me one other, and it was taking the Niners at home to the Chiefs. I'm on opposite of that. So scratch that. And the only reason why opposite, I kind of really don't want anything to do with it, is because just because this 49ers defense is decimated by injuries. Now there's the argument that all of that stuff is already baked into the line. I really don't know about this one. I mean, they are down a defensive end. Nick Bosa is questionable. He was limited participant on Thursday. How do you say his name? Talanoa Hufanga. He's probably the most important part of this defense. He's coming out of concussion. He did not practice Thursday. Trent Williams, the offensive tackle, Jimmy Ward. There's just so many players on here that I'm like, I have no idea. So I lean Chiefs because all of those injuries that they've had, it didn't matter last week against the Falcons because they don't pass. Well, now you're getting Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, I love the San Francisco defense. Let's just be honest. Anytime you're going to give me the better defense plus the points, I'm almost going to be a sucker for it. I do think that San Francisco's defense that has only allowed 2 touchdowns, including 1 fumble return, was their demise, right? This is Kansas City. If you follow what the Bills did, and that is put a ton of pressure, cause Patrick Mahomes to make mistakes, you can beat the Chiefs. That's probably the only way you can beat the Chiefs.
But you don't have a quarterback like Josh Allen to make the
very, very
plays for when
true.
your defense does well.
Exactly. I do think there's going to be a ton of pressure on him. But this looks more like a pick 'em type scenario of a game. So when it opened 3.5, went through 3 down to 2.5. We've kind of talked about that line move before. All signs point to San Francisco. I took San Francisco personally at +3. So I'm sitting here with a field goal in my pocket, and that's where I'm going to hang out.
Let me see what it is for the contest. The contest is 2.5.
Yeah, I knew it was going to be 2.5. That was
So
just because
even with
that's what
all of these
the
injuries, help
market
me
was.
understand then. All of these players didn't practice or limited on the defense. You love them because of the defense, and it's all the defensive players on the injury list, and the line is still 2.5.
So Trent Williams is questionable. Jimmy Ward is questionable. Tyler Croft, which he doesn't really matter, just because he's a backup to Kittle. Armstead is questionable. Abukum is questionable. I mean, there is a laundry list. I mean, we joked, not joked. We shouldn't say we joked, but I asked you what your thoughts were on the CMC trade, and you said, great. You picked up an injured running back to go with the injured rest of your team. I mean, basically, like, it's what we're looking at here. This team is banged up, and that is a concern of mine. But as I said, whenever it moves from 3.5 to 3, and then even down to 2.5, I've just seen this dog and pony show so many times. I had to take the 3, but you're right. I do have my concern. I mean, if every single one of these guys I just listed is now all of a sudden out, yeah, I think we're going to see.
I'm not sure they're going to be out, but more so for me, it's looking at their schedule and what quarterback have they faced. Oh, they're really good in the red zone. Oh, they're really good with the pass rush and getting to the quarterback. But look who you have faced. You faced Justin Fields. You faced Geno Smith, Russell Wilson, who's broken, Matthew Stafford, who's broken, Baker Mayfield for the Panthers, and a rush-only offense at the Falcons. They literally have not played a passing team to be tested.
That's very true.
That's
I
my
also
only
like
concern.
that they win games and cover games at home, 6-0 in their last 6 home games is kind of just that little extra icing on the cake that while we talk about in the NFL that there's not a lot of home field advantage, I do think San Fran is a little disrespected in that. I know we always hear about Seattle used to be so loud, Kansas City is so loud, Philadelphia is so loud. San Francisco is still pretty loud. So it looks to be beautiful weather in theory. So there shouldn't be anything against Kansas City and their passing game. We'll see how it ends up panning out, but it sounds like a complete pass for us.
I think, let me look at last year's schedule. They lost, to the Packers. They lost at home by only 2. That was a better Aaron Rodgers. To the Vikings, the Vikings suck on the road. Just don't really play. All right, I'll I can be convinced into the 49ers. I didn't really have a strong opinion on either side. It's just the injury list really just like spooked me. But it's like also long injury list, but the line's 2.5. So it means that it's probably not anything to worry about. So I could be talking to the 49ers if we don't have anything, then that's could be an option. The other game that I wanted to maybe talk about, honestly, I don't like anything. I
I'm
thought
surprised
initially,
you didn't bring up your Jags.
well, that is on. That's the very next one that I have listed. But I can make a case for every team this week. I look for strength versus weakness. For every team this week, there's a lot of strengths and not a lot of strengths and a whole lot of weaknesses. So it's like which one you can make an argument for both sides. I initially liked the Jags, but then I went to the Giants and then I went back to the Jags, which means stay the fuck away because you don't know what the answer is. With
That's
the
fair.
Giants,
I do lean towards the Jags -3 here, just because they've lost 3 straight. I think that the line tells you everything you need to know. I also think the Giants are a little fraudulent.
mhm,
And I know that some Giants fans got mad at that comment earlier in the week on Twitter, and it wasn't meant to be disrespectful, but in almost every single game, they've been down double digits.
exactly.
And this defense is what's really kept them in it. So, yes, the better defense plus the points here, but the Jags, man, they couldn't have looked any worse than to
So
the
it's
Colts
not
last week.
necessarily about looking worse. You kind of said some of it. So the Giants, they were down 20-10 at the start of the fourth quarter to Baltimore. They won. They were down 20-10 at the half and then down 20-13 at the start of the fourth quarter against Green Bay. They won. Well, in one of those games, how did they fall behind? They gave up 211 rushing yards to the Ravens, nearly 9 yards per carry. Baltimore, though, we know that they let everybody come back and win. Green Bay is
Always.
bottom 5 against the run. So it's not exactly entirely surprising that they were able to make comeback wins against two teams that have shown extreme vulnerabilities like that. The Jags defense against the Colts, they got torched by the pass. The Giants don't pass. The Jags against the Texans, they actually outgained Houston 420 to 250 and 5.8 to 4.4 yards per play. Against the Eagles, they held Philadelphia to below their average in yards per play. The problem is turnovers. So on paper, this should be Jags -3. Their best defense is against the run. The Giants only run. Now, my problem is the Giants have a great head coach in
Oh
Brian
yeah,
Dable,
Brian Dable's excellent. I love him.
who is figuring out ways to, despite their shortcomings on offense, they figure it out. And that's spooky, for lack of a better word. On
Yeah, it's
paper,
almost
it's
Halloween. That works.
on paper it's Jags, but then it's Brian Dable. So, I mean, if you like Jags, we could consider that as an option. I'm telling you.
I lean the Jags -3 here. I didn't bet the Jags. Obviously, historically, and this is what's kind of difficult. Sometimes when you cherry pick stats, you got to look at the Jags have a new head coach. They've only had Trevor Lawrence for a couple of years now. So when you say, "Oh, Jags is 1-7 as their last 8 as a home favorite," well, how many times have they been a freaking home favorite in the
Exactly.
last? How many years did
Exactly.
that go back? And that's, I understand people need talking points to do their media obligations, but the Jags are our home favorite here for a reason, is what I believe.
Right.
But again, I'm not getting to the window with my hard-earned dollars, but I did use them in a couple of my contest picks.
What do you think about? You are always a fan of the commies, but what do you think about fading them this week? Packers -4.5 at Washington.
Oh, the
Washington just gave up
Packers.
391 total yards to the Bears. They allowed 240 rushing yards to Chicago, 6.4 yards per carry. The Packers, they're the better team, regardless of who is winning what and how they're doing it. The Packers are still the better team. They still have the better quarterback. They have two great running backs in Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon. They're both healthy. And the commies, Taylor Heineke. We've been here before with Taylor
Listen, I was
Heineke.
begging for Taylor Heineke the other night, begging. I was like, please, Ron Rivera, just take Carson Wentz out of the game. Man, this is a really tough. Both these teams, honestly, are tough to back. You've got the Packers, who just keep consistently beating themselves, whether it's on special teams. Aaron Rodgers fumble last week. I mean, this team is so frustrating, but this is a Commanders defense. They should be able to pick them apart. Taylor Heineke, I don't think is much of a drop off here. I would say about 1.5 from Wentz. He's been all over. We know he's been a journeyman. Now with Ron Rivera, we'll see. This
They
is
still
tough
have
for me.
we took them. I don't know if you remember this, but we actually took in this situation, we took the Commanders last season, and it was against the Packers, and they almost had the cover, but they were shitting all over themselves in the end zone. They could not score touchdowns. They had
You're
like
right. They
a
are
dozen.
inept to the red zone. It is
Well,
very disgusting.
they have that exact same problem this season. So I was like, instead of wanting to hope for a change of heart for Washington, take Packers because they figure
This
it
is
out.
definitely a buy low spot on the Packers. I haven't seen the Packers do any worse.
Minus four and a
I'm not
half.
complaining about it. I have a Vikings to win the NFC North ticket in my pocket, so I'm here for all the Packers' demise.
Okay, another option then.
Okay.
Never another fuck. I mean, the Bucs minus 11 at the Panthers. It's on paper, it should freaking work out. Who do the Panthers have now? Just Baker Mayfield. I mean, the Tampa Bay Bucks, they are still top 10 against the pass. Panthers don't have an offense. They don't apply any type of quarterback pressure. They don't
And
have
the
an
line's
Atlanta
currently 13 without CMC.
and the contest is 11. I don't love it, but I'm like, I literally have no options here. I don't know.
You know, I laughed, and hopefully this audience gets it as well. But Megan and I share a lot of stuff on TikTok since we're required for work to be on TikTok, and she sent me this thing about Giselle being a witch. And I laughed and laughed and laughed. And now, and this was weeks ago, and now I'm beginning to think it came true after they lost to the Pittsburgh Steelers. I will say this, my buddy Joe, this is his best bet on our show, and I respect him a ton. He thinks this is a very great spot for Brady to get right. Though they haven't covered as of late, this Panthers team just has so many challenges. It looks like they're just ready to pack it all in and just fire sale, right?
I
So
just don't know how they score.
they can put pressure on Brady against the pass. We know this defense is capable of doing that. Brian Burns got 4 of the team's 9 sacks so far this year. That's my only concern with laying double digits here on the road. Carolina just 1-9 against the spread in their last 10 home games, though. I don't hate it, and we're getting the best of the number. We didn't get the opening number of 9.5, but at 11, we're getting 2 points better than the market. I'm okay with putting it with a little asterisk in case we don't find anything else.
Okay, well, those are all I had. Because I initially thought that I liked the Browns against the Ravens.
I had the Browns on my list, my long list, and it is gross. They are gross. They are not fun to watch and or bet on or against. This is a Baltimore Ravens team, though. I said last week I wanted to bet against, and that sandwich spot. And boy, just like always, they looked great in the first half. And I thought I was going to go 0-3 on a Sunday.
Well, for the Browns, the contest is 6.5. It's not 7. In the other contest, it is 7. But for this one, it is 6.5. Baltimore, so here's some nuggets. Baltimore has covered in 5 straight against Cleveland. That sounds all hunkadory, right? Except only right now, the only time that Baltimore is trailing in games is when they lose in the last few seconds of the game. Both of these teams are rush-heavy offenses. Lamar Jackson, he has 17 carries of 10-plus yards, trailing only Nick Chubb. Go figure. The difference, though, comes in defense. Cleveland is allowing 45 yards on explosive carries. That's the 4th worst. Baltimore is 8th best at limiting these types of plays. But then I see that type of stat, and I'm like, okay, let's go ahead and take a look at who you have played. The Baltimore Ravens, they faced the New York Giants, who has a great head coach the Browns faced the Giants, who have a great head coach in Brian Daboll. That's a top 10 passing defense. The Bengals, they were up 10-0. Talking about the Ravens here. The Bengals, they were up 10-0, 16-10. Joe Burrow in the second half defense in the league. They had the Bills, the Pats defense, and then Miami surged 35-14. But the Browns, they're top 5. What have we seen consistently from the Ravens? They are giving up leads. The Browns are top 5 in 4th quarter scoring. And we know that Baltimore can hold on to leads. Cleveland against a passing team in the Chargers, they lost by 2. Cleveland against a rushing team in Atlanta, they lost by 2. Cleveland against a very good defense and what I peg to be a good defense in the Jets, they lost by 1. They have been tested in multiple areas, the pass, the rush, the defense, and they are still sneaking in 3 points or less losses. Yeah. And the Ravens, until you can show me that you can hold on to a lead, play all 4 quarters of football, Is this not just like an automatic fade of the
I
Ravens?
think it is. Pam, we've seen 30 games this season come down to a field goal or less. I try to stress the importance of numbers all the time. This is a huge game here for the division. And while I do think the Ravens are going to win, you nailed it with the Giants. Now, if I was just the Browns head coach, it would be fine because I would be like, hi, we have Nick Chubb. Oh, and have you met his twin, Kareem Hunt? Run the football, pound it. And guess what? You can dominate the time of possession and possibly win this game. I don't know if they're going to do that, but that's what my playbook would be doing. This is what we've seen it happen tons of times here. It's either that or you got to do what the Dolphins do and just keep airing it out to Tyreek Hill because that's how those are the two ways you beat the Ravens. And that's about it. I like the Browns. They were 4th on my list, right behind the Lions. I did not send it to you, but then I also had the Seahawks. So we can talk about that one as well if you'd like.
I don't even think that the 6.5 down from 7 is a huge difference when they're showing that they can keep this within a field goal.
Well, Pam, somebody with far more money than us decided that the 7 was very, very good. And that's why it's 6.5. And I'm not advocating going out there and betting it now at 6.5 when you could have had 7. But in the contest, I think that tells us that the Browns are the sharp side here.
So then, okay, want to put that on?
Yeah, I do.
Lock it in. Great. Here's another option. The Colts plus 2.5 at the Titans. Tennessee has won and covered 4 straight versus Indy, but that's okay. Trends are meant to be broken, as we are trying to talk about right now with the Ravens, but including a 24-17 win over the Colts in week 4. What creates upsets? A lack of scoring production. Did you know, Kelly, that Tennessee has scored 0 points in the 4th quarter this season? Tennessee defense has allowed 13 touchdowns, 12 of which have come via the pass. The Colts are 2nd in passing touchdown percentage. But the Colts, I am starting to inclined to believe, because I knew this coming into the season, that the Colts are going to start out at shit because this is their MO. This is Frank Reich's coach. As head coach, this is what he has done for 5 seasons straight. They lose in the first half of the season and then they get their shit together and progress. And why? Because they have a brand new quarterback for the last 5 seasons. So some of that inconsistency behind center is going to need some time to find its groove. The Colts have won back-to-back games. Matt Ryan is coming off his best showing against the Jags in a 34-27 win. He had 3 touchdowns. He had 0 interceptions, and he was sacked 0 times. Potentially, this could be the tide turning. It is scary. So always backing Matt Ryan.
I don't think it's scary, Pam. You know, I love those divisional away dogs. The division teams on the road have been great. We just talked about how certain teams coming off a bye can be a little sluggish, if you will. And my only concern here is with what Indianapolis did last week, and that was give up over 200 yards on the ground, actually almost 250 yards on the ground last week to the Jags. That's my one caveat here. And now you
get Derrick Henry. Yeah.
And now you get Derrick Henry, but I do like the Colts here. Nobody's going to want any part of this Colts team, even though they were able to get a win last week. They're going to look at this and say, Tennessee off a bye, under a field goal. It's a coin flip game. I like the divisional underdog here.
Well, let me bring up one other option before we make a decision here. Nope, that was it. I thought that I wanted the Seahawks. I was going to talk about the Seahawks, but then I changed my mind.
Seahawks. They were on my long list. I could sit here and make a case. This line's down from the opener of 7.5 down to 5. I think that there's a lot to be said about Geno Smith and what he's been capable of. But more than anything, you mentioned injuries as far as the Niners go. God, this Chargers team is just really, really bad. Dustin Hopkins, even their kicker, is now out indefinitely. So I don't know what Justin Herbert's going to do. He's on my fantasy team, but I am terrified of this game. Terrified of the Chargers laying a touchdown. And now this line's come in the opposite direction. I know that Seattle can be kind of a roller coaster ride offensively, but I do think Geno Smith really has shown that he's a capable starting quarterback. I mean, last week,
the reason why I did have the Seahawks plus 5.5 at the Chargers. But the reason why I was like, well, I felt less strong about it was because Tyler Lockett did not practice on Thursday. That's their main receiver. And
Yep.
they haven't faced a passing team. The Seahawks defense, because we know how bad it is, they let Jared Goff. Jared Goff is the best quarterback that they have faced. I just said that out loud. Jared Goff
Yeah.
is the best quarterback that the Seahawks have faced. And to Jared Goff, they let him throw for 378 yards and had 4 touchdowns. And now you get Justin Herbert, who, yes,
Yeah.
maybe they have
The
injuries.
only way
and
Seahawks are winning this game is in the shootout. Let's just be honest.
Right. And in a 5.5 point spread, I don't know how that works in a shootout situation.
I
Typically, it
personally
ends in field
like
goals. Typically, it
on
ends
our
in a 7-point
list.
game.
So we've got Broncos, we've got Falcons, we've got Lions locked in, correct?
Falcons, Broncos, Lions, and the Browns.
And the Browns locked in.
So we need one.
So if you're going to ask me whether I like San Fran, Indianapolis, or the Seahawks more, it's definitely San Fran or Indy. So I think that's where we choose from. And since you don't really like
Shit.
San Fran, I think we go Indy.
Indy. Okay.
And that's just the easy pick.
Easy pick.
Easy pick.
And it is really, I mean, maybe you have like a stat line to go with this, but it's really difficult to beat a team twice in the same season.
Yep, absolutely. And I wish I had that. I can always ask and I can tweet it out, but it is very difficult. I know that's an old adage, but it is truly, especially in the NFL, like divisionally, excuse me. Not obviously we're talking about the NFL, but NFL divisions, it's very hard to beat a team twice. Yes.
So that would be, I have no data to back that up. It's just my theory and I've never actually looked into it, but to me, it just sounds very hard to do. So, okay, well then that's our 5. What do you think about then Broncos -1 at home to the Jets? That's your best bet. Falcons +6.5, my best bet at Bengals. Lions +7 at the Cowboys. Browns +6.5 at the Ravens. And then the Colts +2.5 at the Titans.
Let's do it.
Who on this list do you have in your, where you won all the money, Kelly? What are we missing?
I bet the Broncos at a pick 'em. I bet San Francisco +3, and I've got Lions +7 in my pocket, and that is it. I may actually, though, the more we talked about the Browns, I'm going to look at them a little bit further, and maybe I wait till halftime, you know, traditionally, as the Ravens love to choke in the second half. And I do like Indy. I have them in several teasers this week. So maybe I won't actually take the 2.5 and I'll just leave it +8.5 and hope they can just go into Nashville and get us the W.
Well, then that is our 5 against the spread picks this week for week 7 of the NFL. Do make sure to follow Kelly on Twitter at KellyInVegas. You can follow me on Twitter at PamelaM35. Do make sure to like, subscribe, leave your comments on what you think of our card this week. It's okay. Shit all over us for our 1-4 last week because you know why? We're going to bounce back this week. That is how it works. So thanks for hanging out with me, Kelly. That does it for another episode of Sack of Stats.